Hi there, this is Brandon with Birdall Sawmill. Behind me here is what we call the Texas Twins, these big, large sculptures, and if you have a minute, I'd love to tell you the story about it. So back in 2010, I was with a gentleman in southeast Texas near the little town of San Felipe looking at tracts of timber that had some windstorm damage. And during our conversation in the pickup truck, he mentioned that his friend had the third largest pecan tree in the state of Texas. I kind of questioned him on how he knew that, and he explained to me that the Texas Forest Service had a program called the Big Tree Registry, where they would come out and measure trees that you thought were really, really large, whether it was pecan, walnut, hackberry, cedar, any species. They would send somebody out, and they had a scoring system so that there was 1 point for every inch in circumference at breast height, there was 1 point for every foot of crown height, and 1 point for every foot of crown spread. They would total it up and then tell you if you had the biggest, the second biggest, the fifth biggest, and there was a scoring system for that. And so this gentleman knew that there was a tree close by that had been recorded as the third largest pecan tree in the state of Texas. So me being curious and loving big trees, I asked him, I said, Tom, can we go see it? Can you call the landowner and see if we might be able to check it out? He said, sure. He made a phone call, and the gentleman said, sure, come on over. We'll be happy to show it to you. So we pulled up, and there was this pecan tree. It was over 7 feet in diameter, over 100 feet tall, just huge, massive thing. And it went up about 10 or 12 feet, and it branched out. And as I was admiring this tree, I looked up there and I saw a little crack of daylight where those branches came out. And I mentioned it to the landowner. I said, oh, I can see a crack of daylight up there. It looks like the tree kind of wants to split apart. And he said, oh, I haven't noticed that. I better get some chains or cables and tie it together. And so I handed him my card and I said, sir, I hope nothing happens to your big tree, but if it ever does, if lightning gets it or anything, windstorm, if it comes down for some reason, I'd love the opportunity to try to harvest some of the wood off of it. And so we left that day, went to look at some other logging sites, came back, and about 6 to 8 months later, I got a phone call, and the gentleman asked me if I remembered who he was. I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, you remember that big tree? I said, absolutely, I remember your big tree. And he said, unfortunately, last night we had a bad thunderstorm come through here. We had about 80-mile-an-hour straight line wind come through here. And he said, that old big tree just split right in half. And the half is on the ground, the other half is standing there. And he said, I remember you mentioning to me that you'd love to have an opportunity to get some of the wood off of it, being the third largest pecan tree in the state. And he said, if you want to come down here and look at it, I'll be happy to show it to you. If not, I'm going to take my bulldozer and I'm going to push it off in the river, because this tree was growing about 200 yards from the Brazos River. So I said, no, sir, please don't push it off in the river. I will be there in about an hour. And so I told the guys in the mill, I said, I'm leaving, I'm going to San Felipe. And I jetted down there. And when I pulled up, I saw this tree had split in half, and the half that was on the ground had also split in half. So when I came up to the tree, these two big sculptures were kind of splayed out like that. And so this one here is a quarter of the tree, this is a quarter, and the other half, as far as I know, is still standing there. So I looked at these two pieces, and being somebody who saws a lot of lumber, I obviously knew there wasn't a lot of lumber in these pieces, but they just drew me, and it was such a cool look how they kind of like splayed out. I just kind of sat there and admired them for a few minutes, and I thought, those are really, really cool. Those are one of the most unique things that I've ever seen. And so I told myself that I would love the chance to get those, and I'll come back with a forklift and a truck and a trailer tomorrow. So I headed back to the mill, packed everything up, and the next morning we were down there in San Felipe, and we harvested these two sculptures, and we brought them back to the shop, put them on some temporary skids, and I just looked at them for a while, and we sculpted the top of each one of these just a little bit, just very minimal, to take the chainsaw cut that we had to take out to harvest these, and we sandblasted them. There was a little bit of rotten wood and kind of soft wood, so we blasted that away very carefully with a sandblaster, and that's all that we have done to them. So I feel like these were kind of made by nature. This little feature over here, none of that is carved. That is all, it was there just like it was. A lot of people think that looks like a jackalope or a frog with horns. We get all kinds of comments, but that's completely just like it is. I try to leave them as close to when I found them as possible. And we call them the Texas Twins, and I've had them for a while. Recently, we flipped them over and we flattened the bottom accurately so they would mount on these big plates. These plates are 2 inches thick, solid steel, 48 inches by 48 inches. The steel plates themselves weigh 1,300 pounds, and these sculptures weigh about 1,900 pounds a piece. So there's about 3,000 pounds with this plate and the sculpture, about the same on this side. And I have had them in the shop. I love looking at them every day. and we're taking them to the Western Design Conference this year. So these are some awesome sculptures that I've got to enjoy for a long time, and I hope somebody does too. Thanks.